Hi, in this video, we're going to take a look at candidate fields in Smart Recruiters. So if there's additional information that you need to capture from a candidate after they've applied, so whether it's just information a recruiter may need to capture as they're talking to a candidate during a phone screen, or perhaps it's additional information you need to send out to the candidate later on in the process, or information needed for offers or new hires that you want to be able to report on or use for any integrations, we can use candidate fields to do that. Before we dive in to settings and admin to take a look at how we configure those, I just want to show you first where that information can appear. So the first area where we can see candidate fields are in this section on the candidate profile called application fields. They're called application fields because the information that is entered here relates specifically to this application for this candidate. So the candidate may have multiple applications in which the information recorded here could be different per application. So the type of information you may want to add here is anything that maybe the recruiter is going to get from the candidate or the hiring manager as they're talking to them through phone screens or interviews. And then I can simply come in, edit and update the fields as needed. The next area where we can see those candidate fields is on the Forms tab. So if we send a form out to a candidate to provide us with additional information later on during the application process, when they complete that form, any fields that are part of that form will be available for us here. So here we'll be able to see what information has been completed by the candidate. Of course, when we get to offer stage, there are definitely going to be some fields that we need to capture. We'll see later on when we look at the offer process how we pull these fields into offer templates to have them appear on this tab. But I can see here, for example, that I've got information like the salary, their orientation date, along with their name details. So the offer tab is where we can also have information appear. And then finally, when we go to hire a candidate, we can have fields appear here also. So anything I want to confirm at the point of hiring can be populated on the new hire form here. So if I navigate to settings and admin, I will find my candidate fields underneath configuration. And here, once I enter this area, I'll see a list of any fields that I've already created. So the fields that we have available here, there are a bank of default fields that you can pull through. So things like first name, last name, for example, we obviously have those fields in the system already and we're capturing that information when the candidate actually applies. But if we want to have those fields populate anywhere else, so maybe we need to have the candidate reconfirm via a form, or we want to confirm them again at offer or new hire stage, then we can add those fields to our list of fields available to use. To add a field, you can see the button in the top right-hand corner here. I can choose from those pre-existing fields, so first name, last name, for example, I can find in this list. And I'll also find additional data points that I can pull through here. A lot of these appear here because of integrations we have built with different partners, but of course you can utilize them if you wish. When you use an existing field, so let's say I want to pull through phone number, for example, I don't have any options as to the type of field it is because this field already exists. So in my preview over here on the right-hand side, I can see this is actually a text field to enter the information into, and I can't change that to, let's say, a drop-down type field or some other type of field. If I want to create something custom, then I have the option to come through to the bottom here and create custom field. When I create a custom field, you'll see the available field types on the left-hand side. So whether it's a free text field, date type field, some kind of number, so percentage or currency or numerical. I have the user picker field if I want to allow the user to look up a user in the system. And I have a yes, no, and single select field. So that's my drop-down field here. I'm just going to create a free text field. I'm just going to call it training example today. As I type, you'll see in my preview at the bottom that appears here for me. And then I have a number of options. So the first is, where do I want this field to appear? So candidate profile. This means it will appear on that little panel of application fields. It also means it will appear on that form tab if we then later on add this field into a custom form, which we'll look at in a later video. I can choose whether or not I want to make the field required by toggling the button on and off here. I can choose whether it's part of the offer approval process. So when we look at offers, you will see that we can add fields here and not have them specifically stated here as being part of the offer approval. By adding them as a merge field into our offer templates, they'll automatically be available for us. But if it's a field that's particularly important for an offer approval process, then I can choose that it should appear on all of the offer approvals. And then finally, the new hire form. So that was that other tab. When we confirm a hire in the system, I can have that field appear here for confirmation. And as you can see, I can choose that they're required on some areas and not others. Of course, as I mentioned, if this is just something that perhaps you want to pull through into an offer template, you don't need to check any of these boxes. We just need to make the field available for us to use in the future. If we have stated that this should be part of offer approvals, we have an additional option that we can say if this field gets edited on an offer, it will re-trigger the approval process. So this is particularly useful if we're going to say, well, this is important for offer approvals. Generally, we want to make sure that it triggers a reapproval if it gets amended later on. And then your final options at the bottom are who has access to be able to see this field. So all users in the system who have permission to see these different areas in the system, or should it just be our users with full access? And then for which org fields. So if this particular field is only relevant for a specific country or a specific department, then I can make sure that it only appears in that particular instance. So if I say this field is only applicable perhaps for the Bahamas, I can check this box here and know that it will only appear in these areas for jobs in the Bahamas. Once I have configured everything here, I can go ahead and save, and that field will be added to my list. So I can see it's down here at the bottom. At any point, you can come in and edit this field, but notice you cannot change the name. So just be mindful that when you create a field, you want to make sure you have the name correct and your spellings are correct, because whilst we can remove these fields from the system, they are not truly deleted in that that field and its name will be retained for reporting purposes. So it's not something we can then go and create additionally in the future. So just be careful when you're naming your candidate fields. So in other videos, we'll take a look at where some of these fields will come into play, such as the custom forms and offers. But for this one, this is how we can create our list of candidate fields. Thank you.